42 right now, circle. I'll try to be brief, but there's a few things I wanted to talk to you about. It occurred to me that there are a number of matters before this board that last year that seemed important, but I really don't know where they stand right now, and I wanted to, and we're writing our newsletter, I'm writing it, and I would like to kind of raise these and see what's going on. First has to do with the 5-year fiscal plan. Half the first year is over, and where do we stand versus what the consultants said to expect we would stand? I don't see any discussion about we raise taxes. Do we need to raise taxes? Do we raise enough? Not too much? I'm hoping that you could add to your September agenda a discussion of where we stand financially this year versus where you expected to stand when you raise the taxes. The second item is next year's budget. Typically, I would hope to see by now items on your agenda talking about priorities for next year. Not necessarily with numbers, but what people are thinking. So we could try to get some consensus. And I'm certainly concerned whether or not the budget process for this next year will be any more iterative than it was last year. I'm concerned that we're going to wind up, it's going to just be presented without real thought. And I would honestly like to see just a more iterative presentation where you're discussing the important issues for the year, you're preparing some financial plans for the board to see that shows, okay, we expected, this is what the consult said we were going to do the next 5 years. We did this instead the first year. This is what our actuals are versus what we expected. This is what that's going to mean rolling out the next 4 years. And what additional things do we also want to do after that so we can have some real discussions and understand what's going on. Third item is the hiring of new firefighters. It seemed last year we were trying to triage a shortage of firefighters until we received a SAFER grant from FEMA so we could hire new firefighters. And we never received that grant, and I really don't know where we stand. And I'm concerned, this was a huge problem, and then all of a sudden it's not being discussed. And I know that Brian Fitzpatrick's office just announced that Ben Salem, their ambulance squad just got a grant of FEMA grant of $188,000. So I'd like to hope that we are on top of doing what we were supposed to do about the grant money. And if we're not, what are we doing about it? I proposed giving more money for volunteers, making incentive for volunteers. And I think what actually happened is that we gave less money to the Volunteer Fire Association than we did in the prior year. So, did we apply for a new grant, and where do we stand? The fourth item is hiring officers of color. I believe there will be 5 new police officers in the span of 12 months. We hired an officer last September, 3 more were in the budget, and then there was the tragic and untimely passing of Sergeant Ambrose. So, the question is, as a township, what are we doing about diversifying our police force? And I brought this up at a prior meeting. I know another resident spoke afterwards and said, that guy's a troublemaker. And then that resident went on to describe that at one point, we had a black officer who has since retired, and he described how he was so tremendously good for the township, a great example for the township. And it was kind of like I'm saying to myself, yeah, that's my point. So I'm really hoping something's going to happen here. The fifth is COVID relief funds. Before you spend the money, you kind of have to have a view on the processes that you're putting in place to prioritize where you want to spend the money. I mean, even before you say, okay, we can spend it on, salaries, or we can spend it on helping people. You have to evaluate what's important in this township and have a discussion of what's important in this township. And I just haven't heard that. So for example, let's take individuals and businesses hurt by the pandemic. Are there processes in place to identify who they are? And then from there, you're going to have a discussion of whether and how these funds might be used to help them. I guess that's my question. And the last item is the Toll Brothers Twining Bridge Road project. I know Toll filed a suit almost a year ago, and I really don't know what's going on. I mean, I expected that I would have heard something about, okay, we filed this in response, and this is the status, and what's going on. And I'm quite concerned that, I'm hoping this isn't going to be that they filed a suit, we aren't doing anything to actively contest it, and then there's going to be a meeting where you're going to present to residents, we have a settlement and here it is, and you'll have people coming out, don't do that, but it's all fait accompli. So those are items I'm hoping that you can think about and spend some time addressing in future meetings in the near term. And lastly, before I leave, I just want to say that I really hope you figure a way to do hybrid Zoom in-person meetings. I personally am not comfortable in a room this size. I want to say what I want to say, but I really prefer to have zoomed in and said these things. Thank you.